So Bernard is just handing out the shadow title like Tic Tacs these days. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. Episode 7 of Silo is here. It's called The Dive. It's done in halves. I thought they were going to spend all the time with Juliet, and Solo, but they did not, which is probably for the best. I think if there is something to sort of be negative about with this series, is that the timing and how long we're taking to get the Jules and Solo piece going, or getting to the dive, or getting to that mission, is taking a very long time. So I think there's one episode that we could have cut back and not uh spend so slowly going on to get to a faster process there. Especially when we only had like 10 episodes. I think we're in 7. We could have got there a little bit faster. That said, how we get there and how we finish off with this episode sort of moves that ball and kicks the can up the hill pretty quickly. 2 halves. They do a good job of splitting this episode up, going back from 18 to 17, 18 to 17, but I'm going to split them in halves because the stuff that happens in 17 has no effect on 18, and so I can just talk about the 18 stuff first and then get to the 17 stuff. There's a lot that happens in 18. Now Bernard has made Lucas his shadow. Because of that, he's now allowed to have him access the legacy, which is a whole archive of just relics and star systems and anything you can think of. It's there. Bernard takes Lucas to this place. It's a new quarters, somewhat better food. Anything's better than the mines that he was in. But Bernard shows him that all these relics are here, and like uses the term like these. We say relics, but that's not really what these are. These are pieces of history that you can study, you can learn from, and then he gives him a tablet. He doesn't call it that, but he basically gives him a tablet that he pretty much say, "Hey Siri," or "Hey whatever search engine you want to use." He used that. He's like, "Look, use this to look up different deciphering codes to go to work. This is all this entire room is your oyster. Go to work and do your thing." Shirley and Knox start working on what their next plan is, and what their plan is. Bernard gets interrupted while explaining things to Lucas. They shoot a parachute up through the silo that explodes and shoots out messages that are written out everywhere, but also that the explosion also has the residue and smell of gunpowder happening. So Bernard hears and smells in real time, like, oh, they have gunpowder, which is a problem. But then he sees that the note says that IT lies to us. Mechanical wants the truth. What happened to Juliet? What happened to how did Meadows truly die? And then what is IT hiding? Look and see. And so it says all of this that's happening in real time. They then shut down the power and then turn it back on, which is just to show you how much power they have. But it also does one more thing, which we'll talk about in just a bit. It's also important to note, it's a small thing, but it sort of gives a little bit more lay of the land. Bernard does tell Lucas that the only thing that he knows about these silos is that they were established 352 years ago. How and why they were established, unknown, but he does know that they predate the time they're in by 352 years. Small piece, but important. Hank and Billings come down to Shirley and Knox immediately, like, what the hell were you thinking? Like, you guys just want people to think you're crazy down here? Like, you just shot a parachute and rocket. People could have been harmed. And they're like, look, it wasn't armed or weaponized. We just want to get a point across. We want to get attention. No one was harmed. Billings reminds them that their agreement with each other is that they're not allies. Like, Billings and Hank are still the law. And so if you keep doing things like this, we're going to have to arrest you. We're going to have to take you in custody because we don't agree with these radical ways that you're sort of doing things. And Knox and them's like, oh, okay, well, cool. If you are the law, can you do me a big favor and figure out who the hell it is that tried to poison us? So Hank and Billings go off on a mission to sort of get under the hood of who it is that's responsible for poisoning them, because it's somebody that's in mechanical. After the new form display of power that mechanical has, Bernard immediately goes to go see McLean, and Carla McLean has basically been in seclusion, blindfolded, not really allowed to see anything, but she is giving stonewalling to Amundsen. She's not giving them anything. Bernard goes in there and is like, "Hey, you haven't talked to people. Why haven't you talked to anybody?" And Carla's like, "Look, I'm not talking to the lab dog. I'm talking to the person who makes the actual decisions here. You keep sitting that person, and I'm never going to have a conversation with them." Bernard was like, "Well, cool. I'm here now. Let's talk." And Carla says, "Let me know about what happened with Knox, Shirley, and Martha, and I'll tell you how much gunpowder we truly have." He says no, and he leaves. Now, it's important to note she did this on purpose, because now that I think about what happens at the tail end, she did those names in order of keeping him off the scent. She did Knox and Shirley first, um, partly because they are the ones that have hold the most weight. If you do Martha last, that's the person she truly cares about. It means it visibly it comes off as if that means less to her, and we find out later that ain't the case. Robert and Camille try to calm down and assuage the fear of their son about the power going on and off um, after the blackout, and they're doing a bang up job of it. There's a relic that hope sort of calms his son down that he's allowing him to have. Rob is just really questioning what the hell Bernard is doing. Like, he doesn't get it at all. It's like, I don't get what his rhyme or reason is to anything that he has going on. And he doesn't understand why Bernard has not come to him for help, because without them, the Raiders would have been in a bad way yesterday. The Raiders got the leg up because of the information that they got from Sims. Without that, things could be a lot worse. And Camille points out, which is, I guess, what the folks in IT wanted them, I mean, the folks in mechanical wanted them to see, is that when Bernard came out of IT and the power was off, the lights in IT were still on. And that's an important thing to note. When he went back in, he turned them off to sort of save face, to say, "Hey, I'm on the same playing field for you with you." But it was already too late. It has sort of been seen that the lights have been on. Um, to that point, the Camille plays a little bit of a dirty game with her husband and says, "Okay, look, don't go to him because you don't want to seem weak. Also, that'll show kindness to him. You want to be sort of in power and control. Let him come to you." That's her way, as we learn later, of perhaps not getting the information that sort of she is playing, talking out of two sides of her face, and sort of doing so behind Robert's back. Bernard meets with the deputies and thanks them for their ability to sort of keep folks calm on their respective floors with the powers going on and off. Appreciate you keeping the peace, despite also not having any comms. Because remember, we turned the comms off last episode because Billings was saying in the comms that, "Hey, I'm not with you. I believe we need to get on the bottom of the hood of who actually killed Meadows." So he's spitting BS to them, trying to keep them calm, keep them on his side. He says that Billings has been taken hostage. Like, the reason why he said what he said on the comms and the reason why they're off is because Billings has been taken hostage. He's not of his sound mind. We will rescue him and get him back up here, and things will go back to the way that they are. He will be right back with us, like he always would have been. At what point does Bernard stop believing in his BS? Neither here nor there. But saying that radios will be disabled until he returns. Paul Billings' secretary, who was his right hand when he was up there, asked about the notes that were scattered everywhere and said what they said. And she also points out to him that, hey, the power in the IT was still on when the power went down. Why was that? Bernard says, "Hey, the folks in mechanical controls where power gets to. They left it on in the IT office to sort of cast aspersions, make you guys not believe that everything's on the up and up. Don't let them get underneath our skin. Don't let them cast doubt on what we have going on here. You guys continue to hold the peace on all your levels. Judicial will handle everything else, and we will get through whatever it is that mechanical is trying to put against us." So Hank and Billings go to a gentleman named Martin to try to get some information about the spies in mechanical and who's poisoning the food. They do come to realize that Martin has done some work for Judicial before. He has been eyes. He has been eyes and ears for them down there. But he's like, I did not poison the food. That was not me. But he does let them know sort of the system, how things get down there. There's notes that are passed through a piece of the cafeteria, like through a back wall. He lets them know that a note came today. And he's like, well, what did the note come today say? And we see that by the next scene, Hanks and Billings go to arrest Knox and Shirley, not because they've done anything wrong, but to protect them because the next order that came in through Judicial was to say, take out both Shirley and Knox. So, out of their own um, safety, Hank and Billings have to take them, want to put them behind a cell just to keep an eye on them and make sure that nobody harms them. Bernard has asked for a warrant. The only person that can sign off on a warrant is Judge Sims, who he has appointed. Amundsen reminds Bernard that you don't need the warrant according to using the rules in the pact. We can just do what we want. But Bernard is very much like, no, I want to keep up the sort of the look that we are doing things by the book. So we need this warrant signed. And Amundsen's like, well, if that is what you want, Judge Sims says he is not signing a warrant until you come to see him. Bernard's like, what the? Seriously? Oh, okay, let me go holler at this dude. Bernard storms to Sims' office and is like, look, I assigned you to be my errand boy, my lapdog. You do what the hell I say. You don't make anything, you don't make any rules, you don't say anything, you have no power. You are the dancing monkey and I ask you to dance, you can dance. That's literally how he comes in. He comes in hot to Sims. So he says, sign what I tell you to sign and then take your ass home. I don't have to see you. I don't have to see your place. I don't have to talk to you. Just sign my freaking warrant. Sims like, nah, I'm not going to do that. He then goes into like, I trusted you. I gave you pieces of my life. I gave you everything you could possibly need to make me your shadow. Bernard's like, yeah, you did. For a while there, I thought you were my shadow. I'm going to make you my shadow. But then I realized that from my past shadow and my current shadow, they both have curiosity. They ask questions. You are a perfect person to go solve a problem, but you lack curiosity. Uh, in that, obviously, new and current is led on to know that Lucas is his shadow. And Sim's like, what the? Seriously? You made Lucas your shadow? He says, you're keeping great people on your team. You're doing a bang up job because you know Amundsen is dumb as bricks and can't is half the person that I was. And Lucas is not good either. So what do you have on your team? But he does say, like, well, you got those two, but you lost Billings. You lost your deputy. You lost all your deputies because they don't believe a word you're saying. And they heard over the comms what Billings said. So they're all gone. And Judicial's with me. So you lost Billings and deputies, and you lost Judicial. You're not on the up and up, Bernard. This isn't a battle you're winning. Nick he calls him Bernie. Basically saying, Bernie, your plan is effing up. And so it just shows you that the level of respect that he typically holds for Bernard, because he always called him Bernard. To call him Bernie is like, I've lost all respect for you. I no longer care about you. I'm going to go do things my own way. It lets him know you run out of allies and you run out of moves. The clock's ticking. At that point, the Bernard reminds him that he forced him to take a life of somebody that he was affectionate to. Like, I actually cared about Meadows, and you forced me to kill her. And then you and I came up with a plan that we were going to pin this on the two from Mechanical, and they got away. And the reason that they got away is because your wife aided them in getting in the way. And I know this is something that you were already aware of because you two are two peas in a pod. I know you don't hide anything from them. Now, Sims does not know this, completely unaware of this, but he does a very good job of keeping his stuff in house. He doesn't. Some of this might be because Common's acting doesn't give it forth, but he doesn't let it read that he isn't unaware of what Camille does. But he acts as if he did. Bernard leaves. So Walker goes to Billings and Hank to get a message to McLean. They're like, we can't. We don't have issues. We don't have comms, communications, any links to go to wherever she's at. She's in seclusion. There's no way for us to get anything to her. She's not happy to hear that. She's like, okay, fine. I'm going to have to do things a bit differently. Earlier in the day, Hank visited Francis, which sort of set off a key event that Francis then spooked and kind of went to the cafeteria. And the news travels to Hank and Billings and Shirley and Knox that a mob has sort of approached May down in the cafeteria. Knox is like, look, if you're are going down there, you're going to probably need somebody who can speak to the people to kind of calm things down. So they all go down there with Knox, like Knox and Shirley attend with them. They get to the cafeteria and there's a mob ganging up on May. Knox tells the mob to kind of calm down, that May is the person who informed us that our food may be poisoned. Hank then tries to connect to May and about her mother. And we find out that her mother was in a bad way health wise, and that the folks at Judicial plan to um, hold that over her head and use that as a tool to say, we'll help your mother if you do this, this, and this. And so it is brought to the light that May, yes, is the one who poisoned them. She's also makes her aware that, yes, I did get the note about killing Shirley and Knox, but it wasn't to actually go through with it. It was solely to sort of cause division. Like, some people are for it, some people are not. It'll cause division in us and that we're not on the same team. Knox does the one thing that I think the folks up top never do. Instead of the folks up top, when somebody does something wrong, they send them immediately to the mines, punish them beyond recognition, send them out to go outside, all that good stuff. Here, they still treat May as if she is a piece of mechanical. She's a part of mechanical who just made a mistake. And so that Knox is like, look, for a little bit here, we're going to give you shit jobs and we're going to rag on you a little bit for you throwing us under the bus and being so quick to go against us. But we're also not going to get rid of you. We're going to keep you in house. We're going to go look after your mother. We're going to find her, make sure that she's okay, make sure that she's well. But we're going to do everything possible to make it okay for you here and make you feel right and make you feel like this is home, because mechanical is home. You are mechanical. And it's a way for he to sort of does a quick check and says, hey, because you're mechanical and we're not going to do anything with you, I think that means you'll never turn your back on us again, right? And she's like, yeah, I won't. And so it is a very different way, a more humane way of handling someone in house, whereas I don't think anyone has ever felt that. And so sometimes when the first thing is to like throw the book at them, electrocute them, whatever you can, this one showed a little humanity and it sort of probably galvanized, one, the folks of Mechanical, but two, May just made her allegiance to Mechanical that much stronger. Back in the Legacy, Lucas deciphers the code and he figures it out. He figures that it's numbers, but he needs a book that is not in that chamber to match it against. It's like, these all are numbers. He goes to Bernard and says that these are all numbers. This is a decipher, a code that is a bunch of numbers, and it's probably to a page 77 of a book that I don't have, and it's not in there. Would you have any idea of what book to sort of start with to test it off? And Bernard gives him Meadow's book of Wizard of Oz, which she had brought up about the hot air balloon. I want to get outside. Wouldn't it be funny? That's all in the Book of Oz. That the code can be sort of deciphered in. Camille comes home and Rob is sitting in the dark, being stoic as ever. Camille immediately reads on his face that he has gone to go talk to Bernard. She's like, crap. Rob calls her out and says, like, you purposely spoke to me this morning and did not tell me what was going on with what you had done with Bernard. But you actively didn't want me to talk to Bernard because you didn't want me to sort of get this information yet. Rob's biggest thing is that you went behind my back. And if we're going to work as a team, if we're supposed to be in tandem, we need to know what each other is doing. Camille's saying, hey, we need allies. And right now, we don't know which team is winning. So we should do ourselves the benefit of hedging our bets. Perhaps we lean to Mechanical, perhaps we lean to Bernard. But right now, we want to sort of play this ground to see which the best and most advantageous for us. So I've sort of put a fire under both sides just to see how this all plays out. He says, cool, I'm okay with all of that. I don't quite agree with going with leaning towards Mechanical because in his brain, he's on the judicial side or burn them all down. But he's like, okay, cool. If you're going to play it that way, that's fine. But we shouldn't be playing each other. We should be on the same page at all point in times. We make all moves going forward together or we don't make them at all. No more secrets. And she agrees, no more secrets. So they are now one on some type of even playing field. But it's also just to show you that how much of an opportunist Camille is. And when that one person who Knox and Shirley stayed with said that, hey, you don't want to be around when she comes back, it just shows you how much of a opportunist she is. And I don't even think Rob is in a good favor with her when it comes to, like, if I can get the up and up, I'm going to get the up and up. She even looks at him kind of soft when he gives their kid the relic. Like, why would you do a thing like that? Like, she is really, I am going to do everything I can to make sure that I am in the best scenario possible. Last thing that happens in 18 is that Walker gets the camera active for about 30 seconds. She turns it on, looks in the camera, and then it turns off. That triggers to Amason to sort of look through some other footage, and he watches the video of when Carla and Walker were in the cell during Bernard's speech, and see how, even though they were divorced 25 years ago, that they still have a lot of affection for each other. So that gives Bernard sort of an entryway to McClane and saying, ah, I got it. She tried to play that name purposely at the end, sort of seemed like a throwaway, but now he knows that I can use Martha a little bit to sort of get my way in with her. In 17, Jules and Solo have a bit of a back and forth. They're talking in circles a little bit. This happens a lot with them in this series, which is why I think sometimes it feels like they're sort of stuck in mud. Um, but Jules attempts to reason with Solo and says, like, look, let me go now. Let me leave. I can be back and handle this water pump situation. I just need to get back to them because there's a timetable on them. There's not so much on you. Solo's like, no, not doing that. They talk back and forth, and Jules eventually just says, acquiesces, says, F it. All right, fine. I'll do it. Let's get this done. Solo lets in some little tips that he's gotten through, like some books he's read and whatnot. It's like, hey, look, if I try to bring you all up at once, it's going to cause some damage. You're going to have some issues breathing and whatnot. It's going to cause a lot of pain in your chest. So we can't do it all at once. But if you feel like the point that you're going to die, you might want to drop down 20 feet and just sort of hang out a little bit until you get your stuff back together and then sort of make your way back up. Jules says, look, you know all these rules and ramifications of what it is that I need to do to make this successful. Why don't you just do it yourself? He throws the pity party. He's like, look, I'm not the person. I'm not the doer. I'm not the person. I'm a failure. I suck at life. Woe is me. Everything is bad, bad. I'm a bad person. I'm a bad human. And he says, you're not. You get stuff done. And so she says, screw it. Finally, just shut up. Let me go do it. He also sort of mentions in a brief throwaway about how people swam back in the day and how they would, and how their motions was to do so. And it clearly stays in her head because it gets used in this scenario. But Solo wants to know how long Jules is going to be staying mad at her, and Jules is like, I don't have time to have this conversation with you right now. I just need to get this done. You can tell that she's sort of dumbfounded by the youthful ignorance that Solo has. Like, why are you asking me this now? Why wouldn't I be mad at you? You won't let me go save my people because you want me to do an errand for you. She dives in, jumps in. It's a beautiful scene. It's shot well in that it's cool to see the water, but it is very dark. I will say that this episode, pretty much unlike any other episode in 17, is shot so darkly that sometimes, especially on those water sequences, it is difficult to see. Like, I had a hard time seeing. But she goes, she hits her spot, she gets the pump on, and then she makes her way back over to the ropes to get pulled up. She rings the bell, but then we see that the rope completely goes down and goes all the way underwater, to which she starts freaking out a little bit, like, well, hold on. Where's Solo? He's supposed to be bringing me up. I'm also supposed to be getting breathing done through like a pedal through my breathing apparatus, and that's not happening correctly either right now. So she takes a couple of last breaths, and then she quickly just starts climbing the rope while she can. The rope that's still there that has her tethered, starts climbing that rope to get up. She unties herself from it and starts climbing up it. She gets up a pretty decent way, and then she triggers and uses the swimming motion that Solo mentioned. Probably she never swam before, but I think because how smart she is, how she knows how things works with the mechanical, with her upper body strength, she was able to sort of make that work. So I'll buy that. Jules is smart enough that if somebody gives her the idea of swimming, she might be able to sort of figure it out on her own. But she gets back up to the surface level. It's over the water and sees that Solo is nowhere to be found. Starts calling for Solo. She goes up the silo a little bit to see if Solo was there. Nothing. No sign of him whatsoever. Then she starts seeing blood. There's an axe, and that there's blood, fresh blood. It's not dried or anything. There's brand new blood, and she kind of goes to look for it, but still no sign of Solo. And we sort of see a shot where it looks like somebody is looking at her, and then we go to black. So the question is, did Solo just abandon her? Um, did Solo take the suit and run? Who knows? What I think is a little bit more plausible is that clearly people have, I think, between the fresh bodies that were there outside the vault before that Jules saw, I think there are people that keep coming back here. There are either people that are already in Silo 17 that did not die, that were just on levels that were inaccessible, or there are people that keep getting sent to 17 that keep trying to cause harm to Solo, and this is sort of Solo's way of keeping Jules there long enough to sort of help him out. But whatever's happening, there are more than just the two of them now. I think in that silo, which at least bring up the intrigue level in that silo, and hopefully get the ball rolling so that we can eventually get her back. Because we've gone 7 episodes from one episode where it seemed like it was very quick that she was going to get the information, get the suit, and get back over. We've now gone 7 episodes, and somehow Jules Steele is just now. She still doesn't have the suit. She had the suit. She still doesn't have the suit, but she has not started making her way back to her silo, and that's just it's a lot. We could go this whole season without her getting back there, or at the very last episode, she finally makes her way back, and that's a hard thing. That'll be a hard pill to swallow. Like I still love it, but that's a hard pill to swallow to go that long without Jules getting. Because I think we've sort of run the gambit of the information that we're going to get out of Solo with Jules, with the exception of whoever it is that's coming after him. We need to get Jules back there now. But yeah, a good episode. I think I like this more for the setup that is to come, like what the future sort of holds for Jules and Solo, like to make that side more. 18's already interesting to me. The stuff that's happening there with the mechanical, I now actually like Shirley and Knox when I didn't like them before. I like everything that's happening there. Now it's time to bring 17 back up to the level of intrigue that I'm interested in. And so I think this episode did a good job of like, all right, let's start this. This is where we're going to finish these last 3 episodes and what sort of pressure cooker we can put them in. What did you guys think about this episode? Leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on X at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast by the same name. That's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere that plays podcasts. We're there. And like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.